Can you imagine a mutant mosquito apocalypse? The reality is that millions of these bioengineered insects have been released in places as close as Florida, Brazil, and Colombia. Today we are going to dive into humanity's secret war against the world's deadliest animal, the mosquito, the vector of dengue, Zika, and chikungunya. We will discover how companies backed by the Gates Foundation are using genetic modification and bacterial infection to force these bugs to self-destruct. Prepare to be amazed by the science that is rewriting the rules of nature to save millions of lives. Millions of mutated mosquitoes. The phrase alone conjures images from a low-budget science fiction movie. A biological apocalypse where insects, previously mere parasites, transform into an existential and uncontrolled threat. However, the reality, as often happens, is much more nuanced, calculated, and, for some experts, infinitely more surprising. The massive release of genetically and biologically modified mosquitoes in places as disparate as the Florida Keys, Brazil, and Colombia was not an accident, but a bold move in humanity's war against its most lethal enemy, the mosquito. No other animal on Earth has caused more human deaths than the mosquito. This tiny predator, with its elegant and silent flight, is the vector of devastating diseases such as dengue, Zika, yellow fever, chikungunya, and of course malaria. The numbers are terrifying. Tens of thousands of people die annually from these insect-borne diseases. With Aedes aegypti, the species that lives and thrives in urban environments, being one of the main culprits. For decades, the main control strategy was chemical warfare. Insecticides, DDT, and fumigations became the mainstay of public health. But nature, in its infinite resilience, found a way to fight back. Mosquitoes developed resistance, the pests grew stronger, and chemical products began to contaminate ecosystems and generate concern for human health. At this stalemate, where old tools rusted, the scientific community was forced to turn to a radical approach, not to fight against nature, but to manipulate it. The goal was to make the mosquitoes self-destruct, a strategy that, in its conception, was already impactful enough to leave more than one expert stunned. The first major player in this field, and the source of the greatest media alarm, was the British biotechnology company Oxitec. Backed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in initial development projects, and with a technology that seemed straight out of fiction, Oxitec proposed a solution as elegant as it was controversial: the self-limiting mosquito. Their strategy focused on genetically modifying the male Aedes aegypti mosquito. This bioengineered mosquito, named OX5034, does not bite, as only females need blood to produce eggs. The modified gene carries with it a death sentence for future generations. When the Oxitec males mate with the wild females, the gene is transmitted. The female offspring, who are the only ones capable of biting and transmitting diseases, inherit the gene and die before reaching maturity. The males, who remain alive and mate again, are responsible for perpetuating this loss of the female population. The release of these genetically modified mosquitoes, GMM, in places like the Florida Keys, United States in 2021 generated a wave of popular panic, fueled by the fear of Franken-mosquitoes. The idea of releasing millions of insects with altered genes into a delicate ecosystem was enough to generate skepticism and rejection among environmentalists and unconsulted citizens. Nevertheless, evaluations by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, of the United States and other international studies found no risks to humans or the environment, highlighting that the self-limiting gene is designed to disappear from the wild population within a few generations if releases are stopped. Despite the assurances, the audacity of genetic engineering on this scale left many pest control experts and ecologists in a state of cautious amazement, admiring the biological precision while weighing the implications. In parallel, another bioengineering project driven by the World Mosquito Program, WMP, and also with fundamental support from the Gates Foundation, was deployed with a different mechanism, but with an equally mutant impact on the health landscape. The WMP focused not on altering the mosquito's genes, but on introducing a natural bacterium, Wolbachia. This bacterium is harmless to humans and already infects a large proportion of the world's insects. However, in the Aedes aegypti mosquito, Wolbachia has an astonishing side effect. It blocks the mosquito's ability to transmit viruses like dengue, Zika, and chikungunya to people. We are right at the breaking point of this story. If the battle between the mosquito and science is fascinating you, take a quick break. Do you believe the mosquitoes of the future will be allies, or will they continue to be the villains? Leave it in the comments. And if you want us to continue exploring the craziest life-saving innovations, hit subscribe right now. It's time to see how people reacted. The WMP strategy is known as the game of possession. Once a male or female mosquito carrying Wolbachia mates with a wild mosquito, the bacteria spreads. If an infected female mates with an uninfected male, their eggs are unviable. But if an uninfected female mates with an infected male or an infected female mates with an infected male, all offspring will be Wolbachia carriers. Over time, the bacteria dominate the wild mosquito population, transforming a dangerous pest into a harmless population. The WMP mosquito factory in Medellin, Colombia, which produces the impressive figure of 30 million infected mosquitoes per week, is a testament to the scale and seriousness of this initiative. This massive biological deployment not only astonished experts for its industrial scale, but also demonstrated that sometimes the solution to a biological problem lies in another piece of biology. The true astonishment of experts came with the results. In places like Indaiatuba, Brazil, where Oxitec implemented its self-limiting mosquito project, OX 5034, reductions of up to 95% in the Aedes aegypti population were reported in a period of only 13 weeks. This rate of population suppression using biological methods was something that traditional fumigation programs simply could not match, especially in areas where insecticide resistance was high. The goal of vector control, which was previously an endless battle, was being converted into a nearly surgical elimination strategy. For its part, the WMP reported even more transformative successes. In areas of Colombia and other nations where Wolbachia-carrying mosquitoes were released, the incidence of dengue plummeted. In some hyper-endemic zones, cases approached zero. This phenomenon, where the disease is locally extinguished despite the presence of the mosquito, represented a paradigm shift. The mutated or modified mosquito stopped being seen as the villain escaping the laboratory and became the most effective weapon in the public health arsenal. The experts' astonishment transformed into a mixture of relief and a strategic reorientation. Bioengineering and biological modification were, in fact, the future of vector control. However, no revolution is exempt from debate. The mutation factor that so astonished experts also fueled deep ethical and ecological concern among the public and some pressure groups. What are the long-term ecological impacts of eliminating a species or replacing it with a biologically modified one in an ecosystem? If Aedes aegypti disappears, will another mosquito species, perhaps one that transmits a different disease, occupy its niche? Critics argued that the release of millions of these insects, although approved by regulatory bodies, was an experiment with unpredictable consequences and that the citizenry was not adequately consulted. The Florida Keys Environmental Coalition was one of the strongest voices against the Oxitec project in Florida. Furthermore, in the digital information ecosystem, these projects were quickly absorbed by conspiracy theories, where the support of figures like Bill Gates was misrepresented to suggest a hidden plan for population reduction or the dissemination of diseases. Experts and communicators had to strive to clearly distinguish between genetic modification, Oxitec, and bacterial infection, Wolbachia, and to reiterate that the intention behind these projects was not catastrophe, but the salvation of millions of lives. The main lesson of this debate is that biological innovation, however promising, requires exceptional transparency and public communication to overcome the inherent distrust of altering nature. Ultimately, the headline, "Millions of mutated mosquitoes left experts stunned," turns out to be a half-truth. Experts were not stunned by a biological disaster, but by the calculated success of a bioengineered intervention. These projects represent a monumental shift in focus, from reactive chemical combat, which only offered temporary solutions, to proactive biological manipulation, which offers the possibility of permanent elimination of disease transmission in entire regions. The real surprise was not the mutation of the mosquitoes, but human audacity in rewriting, in a controlled way and with the intention of curing, the rules of evolutionary biology. As climate change expands the geographical range of mosquitoes and the diseases they transmit, the use of these modified insects is emerging not only as the best weapon, but perhaps the only sustainable large-scale hope. The war against the mosquito is far from over, but for the first time in modern history, humanity has recruited the enemy itself into its ranks, a plot twist that will continue to amaze and challenge science for years to come. And with that, we close this fascinating dive. The experts' astonishment in the end did not come from disaster, but from the calculated success of bold bioengineering. Whether with Oxitec's self-limiting genes or the WMP's Wolbachia bacteria, the future of pest control is biological. What do you think about using mosquitoes to fight mosquitoes? Leave us your comment below. If this microscopic war has blown your mind, give us a like, share this video, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more amazing science and technology stories. See you next time.